Hi, Rhiannon and Harry. It's now a few days after the conference, and I'm still remembering quite a lot. And one of the things that struck me particularly was the 4 Ps. Tell our listeners about the 4 Ps. What are they?
Yeah, Rhiannon, what are the 4 Ps? Can you remember them?
These are like the backbone of leading your church into growth. 4 things really important, all beginning with the letter P. So we have prayer, which is specifically about prayer for growth, then presence, and then proclamation, and then persuasion.
Well done, Rhiannon.
I've remembered. So if I tell you a bit about the first one, for example, prayer for growth, we think it's just really important for churches to ask God for the growth. He wants to give the growth, but he loves us to work in partnership. So it's about encouraging churches to regularly pray for growth. And sometimes that can happen in like prayers on a Sunday, intercessions. Sometimes that can happen like in a vestry meeting or something. And in the project that I work with, we have made a special little prayer. It's based on one that Leading Your Church into Growth folks have sort of drawn up, and we've tweaked it. We pray it every day, and we have done for 2.5, 3 years. It's just a great practice to regularly pray for growth.
Absolutely, and it sort of helps us realise that it's God who wants to grow the church and not
Exactly.
us. So we're very much
both together.
partners.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So then the next P is presence. And I think all of the 4 Ps are about real intentionality. So when we talk about presence, we think about Paul's ministry and mission, and particularly when he visited the city of Athens, that he was a visible presence there, and he had an intentionality about that. So we're usually pretty good at presence, but it's about us taking that presence in the Anglican Church and being intentional with it. So we think our buildings are a witness. They're usually pretty big and visible. We think about some of the social action kind of stuff that we do, be it the food projects, food banks that we run, or children's clubs, or coffee mornings. These are connections with the community where we're not necessarily emphatically sharing the gospel. We're just being a presence in the community. I love the question. Here's a good question for you about presence. If the church, your church, disappeared completely tomorrow, the building, the people, everything, would people notice? Would they say, oh, where's the food bank gone? Where's that toddler group gone? Where's that really nice building gone? And if people wouldn't notice, then your presence is not as good, and work on your presence, because people then notice you because of your presence. So that's presence,
Thank you.
intentionality.
Yeah, and the third one is proclamation. And this is basically saying we've got all these amazing presence things happening in virtually every church, but how can we use those to just say something about what the gospel's about in words as well as actions. And that could be just doing a little 5-minute God slot or something at a toddler group or something like that, and just making sure people have an opportunity to actually know what is the Christian faith all actually about.
Thank you.
And then we come on to persuasion, and persuasion, don't be put off by the word. It's not about persuading people who don't want to know. It's about persuading those who do want to know. So when we do the proclamation event, maybe for each 10 people who are there, 8 will go, no, mate, I'm fine, thank you. But 2 will say something along the lines of, hey, I'd like to know more about Jesus. So it's about persuading those who want to know more. And so the very simple question is, if you imagine a person like that in your church who comes to you and says, I'd like to know more about Jesus and get to know Jesus, how would you do that? And it's about having those persuasion type events planned. You can't necessarily run them all the time, all year long, but know when your next one is. So when someone says that to you, you can say, oh, we're running an alpha course in 3 months. I'm going to put a note in my diary, and in 2 months' time, I'll invite you to come along to that alpha course. And it might be an alpha course or a pilgrim course, Christianity Explored. It could just be, anything like that helps people to explore the faith and go deeper with Christ.
Sure. So we've got the 4 Ps. Let me try and recite them. Prayer, presence, proclamation, and persuasion. Thank you so much. It's all about intentionality and, developing a plan. I think that's what I'm hearing, and then working the plan.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.